I ended up costing my incompetent boss and the US Army over $100,000. And I didn't get in a single shred of trouble for it. It all started with his one stupid, disastrous rule. I had an illustrious 21-year career in the United States Army, which miraculously concluded with an honorable discharge. For most of that time, I was in Special Operations Forces. I carried a gun, not a pen. So I'm no writer. But some stories just have to be told. After 14 combat deployments, you collect a lifetime of memories. Most of them comical. But some memories you try to suppress. This is one of them. Triggered by a stint I did at a place I'll call the Bad Place, or TBP for short. TBP was a 3-star command. And frankly, it was a nursing home for dying careers. It was a strange mix of National Guard, Army Reserve, active duty, and Department of the Army civilians. For a soldier like me, who had grown up in regiment and the 82nd Airborne Division, it was like being sent to a foreign planet. My job title changed overnight from airborne infantryman to equipment tracking officer. My sole purpose was to source pre-deployment training equipment for National Guard and Reserve units. They'd send a request, and I had to find at least 2/3 of what they asked for. The worst part? For the first time in my 10-year career, my direct supervisor was a civilian. Now, I have no problem with civilians. But I have a huge problem with horrible leadership. And my boss, Mr. Harrison, was horrible. To put it bluntly, he was a dirty diaper, full of crap and always on my ass. To make matters worse, TBP had just moved from the Deep South to the Midwest thanks to a base realignment and closure decision. The 4 people who did my job before me, 2 soldiers and 2 civilians, didn't make the move. All the continuity was lost. The only transition I got was a series of emails from all 4 of them telling me what a terrible human being Harrison was. So there I was, with no idea what my job was, or how to do it. And I quickly learned that Harrison had no idea either. He only knew what the final product was supposed to look like. He was completely unaware of the 25 other letters in the alphabet needed to get there. It took me 3 months of working from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day just to get a basic handle on my responsibilities. I was one man doing a 4-man job. I had to develop my own standard operating procedures and automated spreadsheets just to keep my head above water. The first real storm hit in August of 2011. I got a request for 3 Rhino buses. I kindly explained to the captain who called that fulfilling this was impossible. He didn't like that. Then I got a call from his lieutenant colonel. Then the colonel. The issue was escalating. And then the phone rang with a call I would never expect to get. The Bad Place. G4 Equipment Tracking Officer. This is Sergeant Leo speaking. I answered. The voice on the other end was stern. This is Major General Payne from the California National Guard. For the civilians listening, a Major General is the top boss for all National Guard soldiers in an entire state. You don't get calls from them. Ever. I am calling to inquire as to why you will not fulfill our equipment request. He boomed. Is it not your policy to provide 2/3? I'd already explained the issue to 3 levels of his command. And now I was agitated. I could be polite again. Or I could go full regiment on him. I decided to roll the dice. Sir, I said, my tone hardening. As I clearly explained to the previous commanders, there are only 5 Rhino buses on the entire planet. 3 are currently deployed to Iraq. And the other 2 are in Afghanistan. Do you want me to forward this request to the 4-star general at Forces Command and ask him to pull them out of a combat zone for you? There was a stunned silence. Oh. That won't be necessary. He finally stammered. He told me to disregard and said he had some phone calls to make. As many of you have pointed out in the comments, it seemed like everyone in that chain of command was named Payne. Because that's exactly what they were. I thought the problem was solved. But the colonel had already called my boss, Harrison, demanding the buses. And trying to explain logistics to Harrison was like trying to explain what number the letter purple tastes like. Did you tell a unit they can't have a piece of equipment? Harrison bellowed at me. Yes, sir. Because they don't exist in a state that we can get them. They're all in combat zones. I explained again. Well, you need to figure out how to get them. I couldn't believe it. Like, call the Pentagon and ask them to pull assets from a war zone for a training exercise? I asked. Sarcastically. Harrison jabbed a finger at me. It's not your job to validate equipment. It's your job to source it. Do you understand? Harrison made that declaration in his office, completely unaware that this single, arrogant order would lead to his own spectacular downfall. I looked him in the eye and said, Roger that, sir. When one door closes, you find an open window. With over 90 units to service and 30,000 pieces of equipment to source that month, it didn't take me long to find my window. An infantry unit had a request for a lot of standard gear, but 4 items stuck out. My brain immediately flagged them. These items shouldn't be on this kind of request. But then I heard Harrison's voice in my head. It's not your job to validate it. So I sourced it. All 4 of them. It wasn't easy. I had to scour the entire country, making call after call, leveraging my entire network of contacts to find available inventory. The items weren't even located together. They would have to be transported from the farthest corners of the continental United States. But I got it done. I sourced the equipment and passed the paperwork to Harrison for his signature, which magically allocated the funding and authorized the transportation. This revealed Harrison's greatest fatal flaw, his complete lack of curiosity combined with an ego that wouldn't allow him to admit what he didn't know. He just wanted to sign papers and feel important. And that was a weakness I was now counting on. I crawled back through my proverbial window and waited. A month went by. And I had honestly forgotten about my little project. Then, the magical phone call came. Hello. This is Sergeant First Class Miller, Long-Range Surveillance Platoon Sergeant for Unit Name. The caller said. Hey Sergeant Miller. How can I help you? Well, he said, laughing, I am looking at 4 helicopters. And I am told I need to sign for them. I requested them for spies and fries training. You know, fast roping and extraction drills. I'm not a pilot. What the hell am I supposed to do with 4 helicopters? I had to put him on hold to keep from bursting out laughing. Let me check your request, I said, shuffling papers. Yes. You requested 2 UH-60L Blackhawk helicopters and 2 UH-47 Chinook helicopters. Correct? He was still laughing. Flipping Army. I suppose once I sign for them, they're mine to fly? Don't worry, man. I've got your back, I told him, finally letting my own laughter out. I gave him the number for the aviation validators who were actually supposed to support his request and told him to call me back if there were any issues. The fallout came faster than I could have possibly imagined. I had just hung up the phone and was heading for lunch when Harrison's voice beckoned me to his office. When I walked in, I was surprised to find it was standing room only. The G4 Colonel, a man I'll call Colonel Wallace, was there, along with his civilian deputy and the G3 operations colonel, Colonel Evans. It seems we have an issue. Sergeant Leo. Harrison started. Really? I'm not aware of any issues, sir, I said, playing dumb. Well, the battalion commander at Fort Hood is wondering why one of his platoon sergeants just signed for 4 helicopters, Harrison said, holding up the request form. Okay, I said, feigning puzzlement. Did they request 4 helicopters on that form? Yes, they did, Harrison snapped. Then I don't understand the... Colonel Wallace cut me off, his voice ice. The issue is, we needlessly shipped 4 helicopters across the United States. Colonel Evans, the G3, jumped in. There are already helicopters at Fort Hood. Helicopters and pilots there specifically to support this exact type of training. Then, Colonel Wallace turned his eyes on me. The entire room went silent, all eyes burning into me. Sergeant, did this request not look odd to you? My brain was doing backflips. I took a calm breath. Absolutely, sir. It looked very odd. The shock in the room was palpable. You could see the confusion on their faces. Then why did you source it? Colonel Wallace demanded. This was the moment. I calmly and professionally retold the entire saga of the Rhino buses, concluding with, Sir, as I understand it, it's not my job to validate. It's my job to source it. Mr. Harrison made that very clear to me on multiple occasions. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Every head turned from me to Harrison. Harrison, who had been smug just moments before, turned ghostly pale. He sputtered. Sergeant, do you realize you just cost the Army over $100,000 to ship equipment we didn't need to ship? Before I could answer, Colonel Evans shot back, his voice dripping with anger. No. Harrison, you just cost the Army over $100,000. Colonel Wallace stood up, his gaze locked on my boss. Harrison, it is your signature that authorizes allocation of money and shipping. Did you tell my sergeant here that it was his job to source equipment, not to validate it? Sir, I did. But... Harrison stammered. Colonel Wallace didn't let him finish. He started for the door. Harrison, let's have a meeting. In my office. Now. The way he said it wasn't a request. It was a death sentence. I retreated to my desk. A moment later, Colonel Evans, who I knew from a previous unit, followed me and sat on the corner of my desk, shaking his head and laughing hysterically. How in the hell did you do it? He asked. How did you find 4 helicopters? I called everyone. Sir, I said. I made it my mission. What did your counterparts say about the request? He asked. They have the same sentiments towards Harrison as I do. He shook his head again. Honestly? That's impressive. He said. Sir, I was going to get chewed out either way. So I decided. Screw Harrison. Yup. He chuckled. Screw Harrison. I guess. The good news is, I no longer worked for Harrison after that day. It's nearly impossible to fire a Department of the Army civilian. But it was very easy to move me. Colonel Evans found a more suitable position for an infantryman. One that gave me plenty of time to prepare for assessment and selection. I was at the bad place for 18 horrible months. But I finally found greener pastures. And if I ever need to get my hands on 4 helicopters, I know exactly what to do. This story is a perfect lesson in why leadership isn't just about giving orders. It's about understanding the work you're commanding. When you create a stupid system based on ego, don't be surprised when your people use it to make you look like a fool. So, what do you think? Have you ever had a boss whose incompetence gave you the perfect opportunity for some malicious compliance? Let me know in the comments below.